Hi guys, BBQ Jez here. Thanks for coming along for another video in the Weber Kettle series. Today we're actually going to be going through ribs. I've actually cheated by accident with this one. I went and got these from the butcher's and he'd already taken the membrane off for me on this occasion. So I'll have to show you in a future cook again how to start from the very beginning when you get your ribs in terms of getting that membrane off, although I must say it is kind of preference really when it comes to the cook. But he's also put a light rub on there initially for me that I like them to use, like a Chinese style rub. But I've also made my own that I'm about to apply onto the ribs now before I actually get the barbecue up and running. So what I'm just going to do is going to show you what I'm going to do there basically. So I'm going to take it out the bag to begin with. I've actually double bagged it because there's a lot of juice in there, so I will be patting this down as we go. Okie. And what you might have noticed, what I've got in front of me here is like a box container that I use for my marinades basically. So I'm just going to bring this across and place it in, and I'll just get all this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. And from there I'm just going to get some kitchen roll. I'm just going to take a little bit of this stickiness off. Just to take a little bit of the bind that's soaked in on top. There we go. And what I've actually got here is a rub that I've made myself. So I'll put in the description what I've done for this one. But I've gone for like an oriental sort of salt and pepper spice for this one. It's got a little bit of brown sugar in there which will caramelize later on as well. And from there, what I'll do, and don't forget obviously to do your sides as well, which I'll just make sure. The good thing about this, put excess all into the actual tray itself. I can dust this off, and I can dab it and get the sides of those ribs for me as well. Okay, so I'll go get the barbecue on now. I'll show you how we set that up, and we'll get started from there. Right then, so what we're going to do next is we're going to set up the charcoal for the cook. I'm actually going to go with sort of a slow cook method for this one. So I'm going to start off by just putting a load of coal into the actual barbecue itself. And I mainly really want to have space just over the side here so I can actually put about sort of 10 to 15 lit charcoal as I get this cook underway. To do that I've got my chimney here with about sort of 10 to 15 which I'll light in just a moment. I'm also going to want to have a tray in there as well, so I'm going to use a basket just to make sure that I'm propping up the charcoal. And from there, when it comes to the cook itself, I'm going to have the basket over here, so when I put the lit charcoal in and things perhaps start moving around, we don't have it all kind of caving in and going over to the side. So to kickstart, what I'm going to do is to move all this out of the way, and I'll be back in just a moment to light the chimney. Okay, so let's get this all lit up. So we're going to be using the Weber firelighters today. I'll put links to things that I'm using as always in the description. I'm going to just light these up the blowtorch that you've probably seen in the other videos. And the idea of today is, as I just put the chimney down to get those briquettes nice and warm, the idea of today is that we're going to have a low and slow cook. So we're going to have all the heat on this side, which is on the direct heat, but we're going to have that tray that I showed you before on this side where we're going to be cooking indirectly for the whole cook. The idea is, as we get this up to temperature, we're going to actually have all our vents wide open initially and then slowly start to close these down. So they'll kind of kickstart from around 170 Fahrenheit, we'll have the temperature get up to. Slowly close the vents down just below, and we'll kind of ease that off around 250 to 275 Fahrenheit. And then from there, we'll be cooking the ribs until they get to about 160, but I'll show you what I'll do later on when it comes to that. What we're also going to be using today in the cook is some wood infused, which is cherry. We've actually been using this for a little bit now. It's something I got on Amazon. They're from Wood Chunks, so I'll actually put a link in that description as well. and I'll be back shortly once these briquettes are ready to go, and we'll get things started. Right then, once your initial sort of 10 to 15 coals have started to ash over, gone grey, add them to the very beginning of your pile. And the idea there is that as these get up to speed, well, up to temperature I should say, you'll find that you'll now start to slowly catch a light on some of the other briquettes as the cook goes on. So before we get there, I'm going to set up the basket with the tray. I'll also put the grate on as well now. And what I've done, as you can see here, I've added the wood in as well, just so that as it starts to get up to temperature later on, I can then start to ease down. In fact, I might just take this out to begin with and put it to one side just in case. I'll just wait for it to get up to temperature. So I'm going to close this down. I've purposely got the vents over on this side. We'll probably wait till it gets to about 170 Fahrenheit, and then I'll start to slowly close down the vents below. And what I'll do in a moment is I'll set up the actual thermometer probe and we can see how that works. So I mentioned about the thermometer, so I've actually got this is called an iGrill 2, it's a Weber thermometer tool. I've got it linked up, it works via Bluetooth as well, and I've got a temperature probe. So just before this gets too much up to temperature, I'm actually just going to connect this onto the grill itself, so I can keep an eye on what's going on. And we'll just keep a bit of an eye on as this gets up to temperature, and as I say, I'll start to close it down as we come to put the meat on itself. Right then, so now that it's getting up to temperature to around the 250, I've got the vent at the very bottom nearly closed, but to be very important, I've actually got this top vent completely wide open. I found this is the best way to stabilize your heat. I know a lot of people use this vent, and well, both, but I find leave that one completely alone and open and just simply manage everything from the bottom. Opening up the vent itself, before I actually just bring the ribs over, I'm just going to open this up, which is why I've got my glove on, just to place it directly here, the wood itself, so it can start to smoke in just a moment's time. Whilst that's open, I've got the tray just next to me, it's over here, which I've pulled out from the fridge. And from there, just going to simply bring the ribs across and then place them directly over the tray. And we want to cook this really to get to about 160 Fahrenheit internal. From there, I'm going to take the ribs off, I'll wrap them up with some foil, I'll be using some butter, brown sugar and also some honey. I'm of course going to show that process when we get to it, so check back in just a moment. Right then, so we're still cooking at a steady 275. Time to see what's going on. See, we're about sort of halfway on the coals. This is me now just checking to see what we're reading on the inside. Like we're getting close to be able to take this off and put it in the foil. It needs to be about 160, so I think we're probably about 20 minutes or so away from doing that. So what I'm going to do, just because the temperature's dropped slightly as well, as we're now getting from that reading, I've got this spritz. So if it starts to look a little dry, this is actually apple cider vinegar, but also it's my brisket range. So this is where I've actually also got Worcestershire sauce within there as well, which is what I learned when I was in Austin, Texas. So I'm just going to give this a quick spritz. And if you ever needed to kind of keep a quick eye on this in the future, I'd probably spritz it every sort of like 45 to 60 minutes until you reach your internal temp of 160 Fahrenheit to wrap in foil. Right then, so the ribs are now coming out at just over 160 on the internal temperature, so it's now time to wrap them up in foil. So I've got 2 sheets of foil ready here. I've already sprinkled on some brown sugar, some honey and some butter. I've gone a bit light on the brown sugar because there was some in the seasoning itself. Usually put a little bit more if I hadn't done so already. So now I'm just going to get this out. So they're quite big. I'm going to use both the grippers and also that on the side. Let's just put that down there for now. And then very quickly, because it is quite warm today, it's melting. I've probably done these butters a little bit too thick. Just going to quickly place these on top. A little bit of the brown sugar. And then finally, to finish off, some more of that honey to drizzle on as well. And then we'll wrap this up and we'll get it back on the barbecue. Excellent, and then we'll just grab those ribs, place them back where they were, and then we'll come back and check for the tenderness up to 200 internal. Right then, so we're actually up to temperature now. I just had a quick sneak peek before I got the camera on. Open this up so you can see what it looks like for yourselves. See the butter and everything bubbling up over there now. And I know we got it to 200. As you can see, it's putting really nice and tender. I think these are going to pretty much just fall off the bone, if I'm honest with you, looking at how it's going in. So what I'm going to do now is make a quick glaze. So I'll be back in just a moment, and I'll get a pot on there to glaze it on. Right then, so I've just made like a buttery sort of chipotle style barbecue glaze here. Might have put a little bit too much butter in there in truth, but I'm not going to be using all of this anyway. So I'm just going to use this to simply apply just a reasonably light basting, because as you can probably already tell, there's already quite a lot of sauce in here anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'll basically just leave this to open cook with that sauce on, probably for a further sort of like 10 minutes or so, just to bake it on. And then from there I'll get it inside on the board, and we'll cut this up and see what we're working with. And there we go. The ribs have come out great. I've actually gone to the liberty of cutting them up already because I thought it'd be a bit easier than trying to do this sat down. Really pleased with the barbecue sauce that I've gone on after. It's stuck to it really nicely, and we've actually cooked some egg fried rice to go with this as well. Anything I've used today, I've put links in the description for this as well. Don't forget to follow me on any of the social media platforms I'm on, such as Instagram and also TikTok, as well as hopefully subscribing as well and liking the video. If you've got any suggestions, don't hesitate to drop a comment or any ideas for what I can do for next cooks. And until next time, I'll see you soon.